Is the Capital One Savor Rewards credit card the best cashback credit card in 2025? If you ask me, I would say the answer is pretty simple. It's a yes and a no, because it's really going to depend on the individual. Let's just start from the beginning. Cashback credit cards. How do you even say what is the best? It's really going to come down, I would say, to basically where you actually spending. So if you look at the average person's maybe spending profile, but let's concentrate on you and yourself. So while we're watching this video, just think about it. Do you spend, let's say, on dining the majority of times? Maybe it's groceries. Maybe it's popular streaming services like your Netflixes and Hulus of the world. Maybe it's on gas. Maybe it's online retail merchants, just like shopping online, whether that's Amazon, Walmart, or somewhere else. So there's a lot of different reasons of, why would you choose a certain credit card for it to be the best credit card for you. It really is going to come down, if you're looking at cashback or earn rate, then basically based on spending, where is that value for you to get the most bang for your buck, basically. So with the Capital One Savor, it gives you 3% in terms of its earn rate on 3 unique categories. They're going to be dining, groceries, as well as this popular streaming services. So kind of a little, sneak peek there. The point being, in the whole credit card landscape, right? Simply put, when you look at dining or groceries, there's not really a card that offers you both of those categories at the same time, which is the whole reason of why this credit card really, in my opinion, comes to kind of that top echelon of considerations where it has no annual fee, there are no foreign transaction fees, you're getting a pretty stellar earn rate, and it's very competitive with other likes of cards. For example, when you look at Chase cards versus Capital One, what you'll notice is this kind of the opposite of juxtaposition, so similarity, where basically if you're on their portal, both of these banks basically have their internal portal where you can book like rental cars, hotels, flights, etc. The point being, you get 5% back per dollar spent on each of these portals. So just by having this card, internal connection for lack of a better term, and when it comes to customer service on these portals, I'm not going to, tell you they're stellar. There's actually reports it's the inverse. At the same time, if you save a few bucks here and there for routes that you're willing to take anyhow, then why not save money when you can? Now, here's the thing. There's extra nuance where, hey, if you're booking through the portal, then maybe status when you're flying or staying at certain, locations, maybe that's not going to be applicable or not, or all these things. My assumption here, in general, is that folks that are interested in optimizing for cashback, it's not that they don't like to travel. Let's say we all love to travel. The point being, there's also the other part of everything with credit cards, points, miles, where you can have advantage and better rates for traveling abroad, whether, internationally or even in the domestic cases. Point being, with cashback, let's not over optimize on this part. Let's keep it going to other considerations that this card has to offer to us. Coming back to when I was mentioning Chase, the reason this is important is because the Capital One Savor, it gives us 3% on dining. And when you look at the no annual fee options for Chase cards as well, such as the Chase Freedom Unlimited or the Chase Freedom Flex, you're also getting 3x per dollar spent. There's definitely nuance where cards can earn points, and those points can be redeemed for cashback or in a myriad of other ways, but concentrating on it from a pure cashback standpoint. Simply put, with the Freedom Unlimited or the Freedom Flex, you're looking at 3% back in cold hard cash per dollar spent on the dining category. But when you look at groceries, for the Freedom Unlimited, its floor rate, so the least it can earn per dollar spent, is 1.5% on each and every dollar spent. And with the Savor, that floor rate is only going to be 1%. And like many people will say, hey man, it's 0.5%, like it's not that big of a deal. That's kind of part of where I would say the value of the Savor comes in, where if you don't want to over optimize, if you don't want to do all the mental gymnastics or the mathematics behind which is the most logical and optimal scenario, then definitely that 1.5% back versus let's say 1% with the Savor, if that's not a real thinking point of, okay, why does this really matter? Then I'll say, let's look at the Chase Freedom Flex, where you have rotating categories of 5% back on each and every dollar spent on these rotating quarterly categories. So every 3 months, basically there's a set of categories where it could be, for example, at the current time of recording, it's grocery stores with a Chase Freedom Flex, where you'll get 5x per dollar spent, in other words, 5% back. With the Capital One Savor, we know it's an unlimited cap of 3% back on each and every dollar spent. Meaning, with the Chase Freedom Flex, we have a cap of $1,500 per quarter. So if you max out 5% of $1,500, then you're looking at $75 in cash back. But in the same vein, if you're spending, let's say, a little more on average per month, then you could be getting that same level of cash back when you're spending on the grocery category. But the intention here isn't to just spend more to get more, because in the end, we're talking about a level of cash back where, unless if it's 100% or more, where you're getting a full kind of your money back, like it's not actually worth it mathematically. Like that's just more, let's say, common sense. With that perspective, the point here is that, okay, so there's cards out there like these rotating category cards, and not just the Chase Freedom Flex, you have the Discover It Cashback card as well. And so these cards have these 5% categories where, again, the Savor, it's unlimited, no cap, 3%, straight to the point. You don't need to think about it. So what does that mean? That means it's not that it's no frills, but really you know exactly what you're signing up for. You don't need to think twice. You don't need to think, what date is it today and what card am I going to use, or the turn of the quarter, or all of those type of things, where I can understand a lot of people, they don't really like that part of the game. They're just like, hey, let me get just a simple plan of this is what I got to do, stick to my system, let's not overcomplicate it, if it's not broke, don't fix it, like all of those terms. And there's nothing wrong with that, because to each their own. As the years have been going on, I've said it in previous videos, it's pretty much how Apple has its Apple ecosystem. It really comes down to thinking about, okay, what other items basically make this kind of ecosystem sticky. In other words, it's not about adding other cards. So when we're talking about cashback credit cards, I really don't want it to be, okay, hey, I have a cashback credit card, and if I get an annual fee credit card where my cashback can be now worth miles if I transfer it from the Savor, let's say, to the Capital and Venture X, which is a real scenario, you can take your cash back, but instead of 3%, you can get 3x miles for each and every dollar spent on dining, groceries, and all the categories with the Savor. So that is a great point, and I love that concept in general. The point being, here's the flip side of that. If you actually were interested in something like that, the funny part is, if you transfer the currency you're earning with the Capital One Savor, but over to the Venture X, a simple example is that once they're with the Venture X, you can't go backwards. So let's say you transfer 10,000, Capital One Savor points over to your Venture X. That 10,000 could be $100 worth of cash. But now that you transferred it over, true, you have 10,000 miles. But if you try to redeem it for cash back, it's only going to be worth 0.5 cents per mile. In other words, 10,000 sitting in your Venture X account could only be redeemed for $50 cold hard cash. So coming back to the concept of this ecosystem, what I would say is more with regards to dealing with Capital One products, kind of when you're looking at it from a cross-sell perspective, if you're the bank, basically saying, okay, hey, this individual has a product with us, a financial product, and they're kind of logging into their account, maybe monitoring their spend, maybe paying off bills. Maybe they want to know, what's your estimated FICO score this month, or whenever you log in. Maybe they'll see something, in their view, and there's merchant offers where, hey, wait a second, I have this card, and through Capital One, there are these perks where I can get extra percent, back, not just 1%, but a significant amount depending where you're trying to shop, and, spend the same money that you're planning to. Simultaneously, you have the Capital One Travel Portal where you're getting 5% back with your Capital One Savor, but just going through the portal and that experience, maybe there's more value there than maybe other portals by Chase, or maybe it makes a little more streamlined search than, going on Google or going through Expedia or Priceline or some third-party site. You really don't know maybe who you're dealing with in general. The point being that if this card were to be the best cashback credit card, then at the same time, apart from just the earn categories where, let's just say there was a made-up card that gives you 10% back on each and every dollar spent, like that's great. And if it had no other benefits and it had no annual fee, answers that. In other words, when you look at it from a price perspective, they always say, like when it comes to sales, if you have no market like product differentiator, then in the market, you're basically competing on price, and there's only one way down. You all go all the way to zero. So when you're competing on price, basically it's not really that qualitative differentiator, it's purely quantitative. It's a whole other kind of situation. So bringing it back full circle, that really means like, what else do we get by being a part of this Capital One ecosystem? And what I would say is there's a couple things. The first is going to be one of my favorite things. It's such a small but simple thing, but if it's in your vicinity, it's actually really valuable in my personal opinion. It's the Capital One Cafe. And I have like walking tour of this. I'll leave a video, over here. You can kind of see it in the description below as well. Over here, you get 50% off when you're using a Capital One debit or credit card. And again, it's not maybe the biggest thing in the world, but it's those simple kind of touch points, and you could say it's a pure marketing play. But when you want a coffee for $2 and change, and that to a handcrafted beverage, you're not paying maybe almost $10, with inflation and the way things are going at, your typical Starbuckses of the world. I may not drink Starbucks every day, but I understand there's a demand and I own the stock. But that aside, there's an opportunity when you're out and about, like, okay, hey, I can take advantage of this perk. The second item is that there's actually a feature called Capital One Entertainment. And for me personally, just straight to the point, it's not really everything maybe I may go to every so often, and I have nothing against it. It just, I haven't taken really advantage of it. But when I see the type of kind of shows or events that exist there, like it's cool and I'll put them on screen. But it may not be my cup of tea and I may not be the core audience, but that's okay because at least that perk exists, and clearly it's there as a value driver because they probably have data-driven analytics to say like, okay, hey, hey, this is worth offering to our consumer base and, et cetera, et cetera. If we look purely at the math, it really is going to just come down to a mathematical equation of, okay, hey, my maximum expenditure is in this certain category. And so, if I pick this card or this combo and this and that and the other, then that's an optimal solution. But we've already covered this. So why am I repeating it again? The reason is actually very simple. There are cards in the market where if you want to take a step further, then instead of just choosing this one card, you can look at, let's say, the City Custom Cash. With the City Custom Cash, there's basically 5% that you can earn on categories, but it's on a maximum of one category per billing cycle, up to $500 in spend. So what that means is whether that's, let's say, groceries or gas stations or some other category like home improvement stores, you can get that 5% up to 500, which is $25 back, cold hard cash. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because you can have two of them, and now you can have kind of that spread of two categories, and you can also have three of them. So then you can have three categories. So the point is, when you look at the Savor, true, it's an unlimited cap, and that's amazing. But when there's kind of these little out of the box thinking of saying, okay, hey, this is the best solo cashback credit card, I don't disagree. And there's no cap, which is insane. At the same time, there's a way to kind of spread kind of the lay of the land that you can cover with certain type of cards, and they can be repeat of the same to just be covered that much more and still get a higher earn rate on average than each and every dollar spent on the Savor. That being said, is the Savor the best cashback credit card in 2025? I would say it's pretty dang strong, if not supremely strong. If I had to pick just one card to be the best cashback credit card, for me personally, I would pick the Chase Freedom Flex. The reason being, I love the optionality of getting 5% on these rotating categories, but 3% on dining is just fine for me. And for me, again, it's going to be that grocery spend where I'm not spending so much, where in fact I may be spending more on dining than groceries. Or even if it was a 50-50 split, that actually is a best case probably to use the Capital One Savor. But with the Freedom Flex, you're already getting the same earn rate as a Savor. So where is the value add really when you break everything down? I would say those popular streaming services, they're great to get 3% back, but are you spending more than, let's say, $300 a month or something, even more, like depending on that? This is kind of crazy when I say it out loud, but it could be a huge percentage cash back, like 15% back, 20% back. But if you're spending, let's say, like $50 maximum, then you're looking at a max of $10 back a month. Still, it's great, but that's like, let's say, reaching a bit further, for example. So all things said and done, it's really going to come down to personal preference, where the reason there's even this much discussion is because, in my personal opinion, in the credit card landscape today, there's basically a lot of cards that they're not the same, but they're so close to each other that the unique selling point of the Savor in my eyes, again, is going to be those dual dining and grocery categories that it offers. But outside of that, like, it's still a great card, but that's the real selling point. And even the intro offers from balance transfers for 15 months, for example, with the Savor, like, that's great. That's also very competitive with the likes of the Chase Freedom Unlimited, the Chase Freedom Flex. And there's other cards in that same strata of no annual fee, where, let's say, Wells Fargo, maybe it's 12 months 0% APR instead of 15. And at the same time, the bonuses, the sign-up bonus offer after minimum spend. With the Savor, typically the general offer is like $200 after $500 in spend, so around 40% return on spend. And there's some elevated offers, it can go up to $250, let's say. So that's 50% back up to that $500 in spend. When you look at Chase's side, it's maybe $150 after $500, but it's kind of understood that as you get deeper into the ecosystem, Chase and Amex are where it's at. I think Capital One's, kind of trudging along and getting there. And over time, the Capital One Savor, maybe this year, is it the best or not? I would say it's like top 5, for example, right? But it's just not the best. But if you ask me what is the best cashback credit card, it's the same logic. It's going to be a lot of this type of circular talk because there's just so many few but so strong competitors in the market. That's my honest opinion. So your choice. If you're interested in applying, there's some links in the description below and in the comment section. I'll pin it. Definitely supports the channel. I actually love to meet with you and talk with you. And there's a link in the description for a quick 15-minute session one-on-one. We can get to know each other. Love to actually know, who's on the other side here, get our questions, answer them, and all the good things. So with that, if you came this far, there's a reason I have 2, but not 3 City Custom Caches. So I'll leave that video over here. See you in the next one. Peace for now.